Yeah, so today, we talk about this SU2 as an explicit example where we can show and that SU2 is somehow related with this quantum mechanic, this angular momentum concept, and that will be helpful to understand the quantum mechanics, the algebra, and the angular momentum part, from the symmetry point of view as well. So as we have discussed last time, SUN group rank is basically n minus 1. Now by rank, as you know, is basically maximum number of diagonal generators. So for SU2, the rank is n minus 1 equal to 1. So you see that in any representation, whatever you do actually, then SU2 among those three generators, only one generator can be kept into a diagonal form. And why three generators? Because the number of generators per SU1 is n square minus 1. It has three generators. Right? So now we know those Pauli spin matrices sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3. They are also these generators. But that's not the unique way to represent the matrix form of the generators. So one can write down the generators, which are basically three linear operators, like here the t plus, t minus, and t3, where you can think of this 1 and 2 get are basically the orthogonal basis. And for the SU2, the Lie algebra is given in this following form: Tij equal to I epsilon ijk tk. And if you compare to earlier one, the epsilon ijk are the basically fully antisymmetric Levi-Civita tensor for SU2, and they are the structure constant. And this and you have to remember that this Levi-Civita tensor is the structure constant only for SU2. If you go for like SU3, SU4, you have to actually calculate those structure constant separately, right? And as you know from the property of the Levi-Civita, it's like epsilon 1, 2, 3 equal to 1, epsilon 1, 3, 2 equal to minus 1, because and for also the odd permutation and so on. And one can especially check, like we know that sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3, if we just normalize them with respect to half factor, like sigma 1 by 2, sigma 2 by 2, and sigma 3 by 2, then if we define them to be tau 1, tau 2, tau 3, then tau I, tau j is basically I epsilon I j k tau k. And here also there's another basis where you can represent the generators as t plus t minus and t3. So t plus t minus commutator is twice t3, and t3 t plus minus commutator plus minus t plus minus. So we can define these Hermitian operators like t1 and t2 in this t plus minus in this following form. And if you see that t1 and t2 are self-Hermitian conjugate, that implies that t plus and t minus are related to each other by the Hermitian conjugation. Okay. So then Ta, Tb is basically I epsilon A, B, C, Tc, where A, B, C each and every quantity runs from 1 to 3. Okay. And as you know, they satisfy this Jacobi identity, so Ta, Tb, Tc commutator, and their cyclic permutations will be 0. Now, for any given group, we can define a Casimir operator, which is a function of generators that commutes with all the generators. Okay, and this function is called the Casimir operator. For example, for a C2, the C2 is you can define something like the sum of Ti square or T1 square plus T2 square plus T3 square, which is the Casimir operator, and the C2 commutes with each and every Ta. Okay, so now let's try to put some deeper focus on this quantum mechanics and the angular momentum algebra. So SU2 algebra is defined in two-dimensional Hilbert space. Okay, the lowest dimensional non-trivial representation of SU2 is 2, and this is also called the fundamental representation. So in generic sense, we about the fundamental representation we talk about more when we talk about in general SUN or the SUN, when we talk about the characters and all those things. But keeping aside all those details, we can still learn a few aspects. Like for any SU1, the dimension of the fundamental representation is n. N bar is the anti-fundamental representation, or it's also called the conjugate representation. For SU2, 2 and 2 bar are basically same. Okay, and you have to remember the 2 bar. If you define a two-dimensional representation, which is like you can think of like a a column vector like psi 1, psi 2, and then 2 bar is not just the psi 1 star, psi 2 star. Okay, so 2 bar is basically I sigma 2 2 star, or I sigma 2 times this psi 1 psi 2 star, this column vector. So, and that's the only thing you have to remember here, that 2 star is not the correct AC2 conjugate representation, but 2 bar is. And this is very useful when you talk about its application in the context of specifically the particle physics. Okay, like the Higgs doublet and all those things, and this conjugate doublet. Okay, so if the Higgs doublet is H, then H star is not the conjugate doublet, rather I sigma 2 H star. And remember, the I sigma 2 is basically the second Pauli spin matrix, which is in the matrix form. You can write it down as 0 minus I 0. Okay. And for this representation, we have this t plus minus square equal to 0, the property of the representation, but not from the algebra. That you have to make it clear. Now, the question is, if you have to work out all the irreducible unitary representation, okay, how do you do that? In quantum mechanics, the states are labeled by the eigenvalues of maximal number of commuting operators, and that's what we call them all sometimes the good quantum numbers. Here we have two such operators, Casimir operator C2 and any one of the TA. And for example, let's say T3, because T3 is much easier to deal with as it is diagram. The algebra will be represented by the eigenstates of these operators. So if you remember, we have defined this like J comma M. This is the state vector, right? Now why that's the way to represent this thing? Because the Casimir operator C2, which is nothing but in your angular momentum, is basically J square. Okay, and its eigenvalue is J, right? Or the more precisely J and J plus 1, but determined by the J. And T3 is the basically the projection of J. Okay, that's the M, and that's how we define the states by the Jm, where the corresponding operators of J and M are actually commuting operators. Okay. The Casimir operator is positive definite, which means that the spectrum of any of the TA is bounded for a finite value of C2. Right? So, and that is somehow related with the compactness of the SE2. Okay, so SE2 is a compact group, and roughly speaking, here the TA maximum minimum is goes as plus minus square root of C2. Okay, C2, when we talk about the C2, this is eigenvalue of that, of course. So let's define the state to be C comma M. So then acting, if we act C2 on Cm, you get this, the C eigenvalue correspond to that, and then the T3 eigenvalue will be given as a M. So T3 will act on the second indices. We can think of that way, and C2 will act on the C. Okay. And the C and M are the real as operators of Hermitian, the way it has been defined as a Hermitian, right? Especially in two operators. And T plus minus, these are more like raising lowering operator. So it will change the M value by 1 unit if you are if it's acted by the T plus, and it's reduced by 1 unit if it's being acted by the T minus. Okay. So now, but as the spectrum of T3 is bounded and this sequence must stop, there is a state where T3 achieves its maximum value. That means you can think of like the highest M valued state or lowest M valued state. So how do you know that thing? So if we there's some state like C comma J, and then T plus will act on that thing. So for a given J, it cannot increase some highest value. So that's called the highest weight state also. And so what we mean the root and weight and all those things when we discuss, this will be more clear from a more generic perspective. Okay. The T plus will act on C comma J will be 0. Similarly, T minus acting on C minus J will be 0. That's the lowest weight state. So now C2 will act on, let's say, Cj this thing, and then we can write down C2 as a in terms of other operators like T1, T2, T3, and simultaneously we can write it down in terms of T3 and T plus minus, and from there we get this eigenvalue to be J into J plus 1, which we define to be the C. So the eigenvalue C is basically J into J plus 1. So, and that's the reason actually we can label the state as CM to JM, and it makes more familiar, indexing with respect to quantum mechanics. Okay. So now in this T minus acting on JK equal to 0, that's the lowest state. Okay, and T3 acting the same state will be KJK state because it is not changing the K value. So similarly, if you act on the C2 on the JK, then we find out this, the J into J plus 1 equal to K into K minus 1, and from the possible solution, we find out the consistent way we can construct the lowest order state to be J minus J. So for a given J value, it will be from plus J to minus J. Okay. So now we can find that there are 2j plus 1 numbers of states can be accumulated between the highest and lowest weight state. Okay, so you can see in the highest weight is correspond to j, m value j, and lowest weight is m value equal to minus j. So from minus j to plus j, there's a unit interval. Okay, and then you can count that there will be 2j plus 1 number of state. And here this 2j must be an integer, and this where the j is the total angular momentum, and it has related, and it has a nice way of relating this thing with the Dimichlet level. So I'm just mentioning this thing, but later when we talk about the Dimichlet index, Dimichlet level, all those things, then for the more generic group it will be clear. Okay. So now it's very important, to understand the representations with respect to this angular momentum thing. But that's what it generalize this aspect. So the real algebra SE2 is basically the infinite number of representations are there. Okay, for given j values, you can calculate this 2j plus 1 number of dimensions. Okay, for j equal to 0, or the spin 0 states are basically one dimension, or the single representation which do not transform under the SU2. Okay, and that's quite understood, because the C2 is like representing a spin, and if the spin is 0, and then that which is known as a scalar, and those scalars don't have any C2 transformation, so to say. Okay. So for any given j, the dimension of the representation is 2j plus 1. So for example, j equal to 0 corresponds to d equal to 1, j equal to 1 is corresponding to d equal to 3. Okay, and so on. And for spin half like j equal to half, it will be like 2 dimension representation, the fundamental representation of SU2. So then we can use this d plus minus operators and calculate their eigenvalues in terms of dm plus minus. That is quite familiar to us, and we find out that we can span those t plus minus t plus minus in terms of matrix form, which are basically 2j plus 1 times 2j plus 1 dimension matrices. So now for the fund, if we try to look into more about the fundamental representation for the SUN, as I told, this is the n-dimensional representation, but we have to remember that is not a single fundamental representation, but for any given SUN, there are n minus 1, that is the rank of that group, actually gives you the idea, the number of fundamental representation as well. Okay. But for SU2 it's a 1, so this is the 2-dimensional representation, which corresponds to j equal to half, and the generators T equal to sigma by 2, and these are some properties of the Pauli spin matrices you must have seen already. And then the next one is basically the adjoint representation, which is n square minus 1 dimensional representation for the SUN, and for SU2 it's a 3-dimensional representation, or corresponding to j equal to spin 1 object. Okay, so for example, like if you think of like the photon or the gauge boson that we have learned about in particle physics, that the spin 1 object, that's why under this intensity SU2 they transform as their adjoint. And these generators are also like 3 by 3 matrices, and you can write them like in the T1, T2, T3, but this is not a unique way of writing this. So this generator representation and the notion of basis is also connected. Like in your quantum mechanics, choice of basis is not unique. You can rotate them and to go to the some different basis. Here also you can write down, rotate them this T1, T2, T3, and define them in different bases. But what is fixed, actually the number of bases is fixed under this rotation. So the number of bases or the number of generators is also fixed here. So that because SE2 is spanned by the 3 dimensions, it's like a 3-dimensional space. Okay, so you cannot rotate them and cannot make them either 2 or 4 dimensional or something else. It will be restricted to 3-dimensional representation itself. Now another important aspect in this context is the addition of angular momentum. So if you recall, the way it has been done in quantum mechanics, basically half plus half, and then 1 plus half, and so on, and you construct a different representation. But now, if you translate those j values in terms of 2j plus 1, you get actually the higher dimensional representation. Like 2 cross 2 is 3 plus 1, 3 cross 2 is 4 plus 2, and so on. So addition of angular momentum is nothing but constructing the higher dimension or states or the representations with higher angular momentum. Okay, so this will not this is not only restricted to this construction to SU2, but also for other SUN or other groups as well, starting from the lowest dimensional representations. But this connection, the angular momentum to this representation, that is very unique feature of this SU2. And the generic how to do this thing more generic group, that will be through this Young table, and when we discuss the Young table, that will be very much clear to us. Now we have to understand how we relate this, the Lie algebra and the Lie group connection. So you can see the algebra is basically span. When you talk about the algebra, it's more playing around with the generators. But when we talk about the groups, basically we talk about the element of the group, and operator of this form is written like e equal I theta a ta, where theta must be real, and you can see the number of theta parameters is exactly the number of t or the generators. Okay, so these operators satisfy the group axiom that if you multiply this u theta u eta, okay, and then you get another u which belongs to that group, which is function of new angle phi, which is also related to theta and tau. For j equal to half, the generators are bound in matrices scaled by half with the proper normalization sigma 2, which you can write on the cos theta by 2 plus I sigma, I theta unit vector sigma sine and theta by 2. So it describes a group transformation which is periodic only after a 4 pi rotation. A 2 pi rotation you can see, because you can see if you change theta by 2 pi, then it takes a over minus sign, right? So that's why it's reverse the sign of the vector, and view this as, and if you can view this as an operator in a two-dimensional Hilbert space, this leaves in this quantity from mod z1 square plus mod z2 square to invariant. Okay. And if you define some kind of complex notation with the element like alpha beta minus beta bar alpha bar, and it leaves like mod alpha square plus mod beta square equal to 1. Okay, so that is corresponding to the determinant equal to 1, and any group element can be represented as a point on the surface of a force sphere S3, and this is the S3 is the group manifold of SU2. Now, actually, if you start with some element and you successfully apply this transformation again and again, so you can trace a continuous curve on the S3. So any closed curve can be sunk into a point, and that's why the SU2 group manifold is actually simply connected. And this can be realized in terms of the homotopy as well. Now, if you think about the adjoint representation of SU2 for SUN, the dimension of the adjoint representation is n square minus 1, which is the number of generators, of course. Okay, and we know that adjoint represents a real representation. Okay, so I leave it to you guys to prove this thing. Okay, I prove that adjoint represents are real representations. So for SU2, it's like a three-dimensional representation. So tau I, tau j are the generators in the fundamental representation. Then it was related like epsilon I j k. Similarly, if you define and the generators now out of the structure constant like tau I j k equal to f I j k, and then this tau I j k from the generators, which now you can see I j k runs from 1 to 3. So this T matrix is not 2 by 2 anymore; it's a 3 by 3. Okay, and that's quite obvious because now that these matrices will act on the element, okay, the states, and the states are basically three dimensions, like a1 a2 a3, that's the column vector. So you need a 3 by 3 matrices to act on that thing, right? And that's what it is, it becomes a 3 by 3 matrices in the adjoint representation as well. Fine. So yeah, so we'll stop today about this thing, and next time we'll talk about different aspect of the group theory.